Welcome to the In My Opinion show with Ronald Berry Robinson and friends. Seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can also view the In My Opinion show on Flint, Michigan Comcast Cable Channel 17 every Saturday at 6 p.m. and every Wednesday at 8:30. You can also view the In My Opinion show on Detroit, Michigan Comcast Cable 68 at various times. Please consult your dictionary. With us we have Mr. Henry Hatter. Welcome, Henry.
Good morning, Ron.
And we have Miss Lee Black. Welcome to the In My Opinion show.
Thank you, Ron.
Great. Child murderers. What's going on with our children? Murdering parents, 6-year-olds bringing guns to school, children beating up their parents for not co-signing for cars, clothes, jewelry, raping their mothers, sisters, cousins, setting their grandparents on fire, poisoning family members with rat poison, throwing lye into faces of classmates, mass murdering of classmates, 9-year-olds robbing stores and other community members. The list is endless. I'm at a loss. Is it poor parenting, peer pressure? Is it television, movies, or the internet? These atrocities across all socioeconomic, cultural, and ethnos. How do we as a society combat this social degeneration? Henry, let's go to you first. What is your thoughts? How can we correct this, or is it correctable?
Ron, the only thing we have to do is look at our culture versus the many, many foreign cultures. They don't have the same problems.
Mm-hmm.
This is America. We've been loose in this country for many, many years. We've lost our family values. We have lost the family settings where families do come together at the same table and share lunch and share breakfast and share dinner and so on and so forth, and have conversations that families ought to have. But those kind of things are gone now because they're captivated by TV and by other distractions. And besides, the law has a lot to do with the behavior of our children. They have taken away the ability of parents to raise their children as they would see fit. And you could argue with that because, as you know, that's how we raise our children. If you don't have a standard bar or a background measure for what a child ought to know during its lifetime, you could simply, the truth could be in the eyes of the beholder. Like many people many years ago, when our country was really, really bad, it was a great country always, but we had racial modalities in the country, so we raised our kids differently. Some families could raise their kids with racism and other families don't. And so that caused clashes in our culture. But in this case that we're seeing today, and most of this is generally murderers do happen disproportionately in urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where people are crowded together. And there's no framework for getting the families and children together. We don't teach that. Many of the things that we learn in schools and churches today is how to isolate ourselves from each other. We're not taught to collectively work with each other, but to isolate ourselves. If we are of a different cultural group, we're taught about ethnocentric things that makes us different, that makes us more isolated rather than collective. So our society is really moving away from a center of focus, and we're not growing as we did in the early days in the country. It used to be that we were a collective society, and
Mm-hmm.
despite of all of the racism and stuff, we were still a collective society. And if we went into our own cultural groups and looked at our behaviors, even African Americans in many of the isolated countries, communities around the country, had great collective societies.
Okay.
They coined the phrase that it takes a whole village to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
But all of those concepts are gone now. They say don't say anything to my child. And I'll take care of my child. My child doesn't do anything bad or stuff like that. We've lost all of those. So now kids are kind of entities of their own without direction and without culture and without a yardstick. It's, and TV tells, and many of the music that we hear say that you don't have to listen to the cop or to your mom or your dad. That's old school. This is your day, you know. And so we're looking at a lot of parameters that's making up more attitudes in our children.
Mm-hmm.
And they're becoming much more egocentric than what we were as children. We were taught to respect the parents and taught to respect life and to get along with people. But today that's gone. I know that sounds like a complex answer, but it is a complex situation when you deal with kids. And today, kids under the law have their own rights in school and in society. Children are protected, and they should be from,
Of course.
from behaviors that are aggressive and abusive to children. But they are also, we've lost something else. We've lost the ability to influence them.
Lee, what's your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Mr. Hatter that we have lost our morals. Our children are headed in the wrong direction, many of them. I think we also have to realize that we're dealing with an undeveloped brain. Children, their brains have not developed to the point of reasoning through sometimes situations. And oftentimes that gets them into trouble when they make those hasty decisions. But also, I would like to add that we've lost the neighborhood concept. Living in neighborhoods, even if a child had a single parent, that neighborhood concept was prevalent throughout a geographic area. Mm-hmm. We've lost that. In neighborhoods, it seemed like everyone, they were striving for that same thing. Number one, education of the children. Number two, you were in some type of religious, had some type of religious background, or you attended some type of services. The children seemed to have some type of self-concept of who they were, of, well, I'm attached to this family, even though maybe my dad's not in the home, but I know that grandma's there. I know that uncle so-and-so is there. I know that aunt so-and-so is there. There was some type of stability. And I think that's what we have lost in children. They look for, to what I've seen, stability, and they regard discipline. They value discipline. Also, what often we have not had fathers in the home, but still, like I said, there was some type of generational parameters there where you live within those guidelines. Fathers in the home or a role model in the home, that is so important, and especially not only for boys but for girls also, because girls get their self-concept, they get what they're looking for, what men can tell them, what they see in young ladies and what they're looking for, and girls live up to that because of what daddy said and what daddy has presented to her. That's very important. Mothers in the home. What I have seen, there are so many mothers that are not in the homes now. I can't believe it. Last night I was watching, just flipping the channels, and there was a program on women in prison.
Okay.
And our women, a large majority of them, have served time in prison. And I found that astounding. And if you cannot be in the home setting your guidelines and being with that child, interacting with that child, how how does that child grow if there's no father, if there's no mother, and then you have a generation gap that the grandmother, of course, grandmother loves, grandmother sees that you're clean, grandmother sees that you, but still, that self-concept, well, what happened to my mother? Why isn't my mother in the home? My dad's not here either. Where does that leave that child? And the thoughts that they have. Also, what our children see as far as movies, that Xbox, I have no idea what these Xbox, also that PlayStation, those games that I played, oftentimes they're negative.
Some of them are horrible.
They are negative, having that negative effect. And I think sometimes that children have a problem with dividing reality from those games. That this is only a game. I must stop playing this. And sometimes I feel that parents buy these things to keep the children occupied, not knowing the full impact that it has on a child. And those are just some of the things. And I think that church has always played a very important role in children's lives. Young children growing up, for instance, many times in church, at that Easter program, it gives them a chance to show their talents, to show what they can do. And people clap for them, irregardless if they forget their lines, if they just stand there and just, they're encouraged. They're encouraged in a positive environment. And I feel so often that so many of our environments for our young people are not positive. Also, learning that they are loved, learning in the church environment that, learning about themselves. I have known many, well, not many, but some men that have gone to prison, but yet and still they knew in that church environment that they were loved. They grew up knowing that it was important in their lives. And that is just some of the things that I feel that's going on with our children today.
Ron, can I just...
Sure, absolutely.
You know, Lee just did a great job. And I want to... Here's what will probably resonate with our audience. I don't remember a lot. But you said that there were three things basically, and there were other things too, but the ones that resonated with me struck. The children need the church and its teaching. They need structure, and they need discipline.
Yes.
Those kind of things have been lost from day-to-day conversations and directions in classrooms and among individuals. And this kind of encourages restraint from actions that would lead to a breakdown in student behavior, if you will. The killings and the murders and the rapes and so on and so forth. But I think that that's very critical, and I hope that I repeated it again so that people will begin to think about that, because you made some excellent points.
Well, let's talk about family responsibility. You know, a parent, you know, whatever that parent is in the house, you know, that's in the household. I know that, you know, that 50% of all marriages or more end in divorces. So therefore, that might indicate that then there's just a one parent parent in the house. Okay, but there's failings from that point of view, and I think that there's failings from the church, you know, from the church's point of view. But what responsibility does the government have? Okay, I can't see, and I wouldn't allow the government to come in and tell me what I could do with my children. All right, or the police. Okay, because I know, you know, kids will say, well, if you touch me, I'm going to call the police. Well, I'm going to touch your little ass. Okay, and I'm going to give you the phone to call the police. And then when they leave, I'm going to touch that ass again. All right? I'm not talking about abuse. Okay, you could say corrective decisions or whatever. But, I mean, when I was growing up, we had, that family structure, all right? I'm from a broken home, one family, one parent in the house, okay? I really didn't turn out so bad, I don't think, okay? We had a grandmother that was very loving and nurturing, okay? And when I was in school, it's not been that long ago, that's for our millions of viewers out here, all right? I'm not that old, okay? So, if you acted up in school, your butt was taken down to the principal's office, okay? And I'm looking out here, in the control room, and for some reason I'm seeing that paddle that principal had. And he touched me up a couple times, all right? And why this discipline was taken out of the schools is beyond me, maybe because some teachers were overzealous or what have you, okay, and then maybe some teachers were, took advantage of, for whatever reasons. But I think discipline ought to be put back in the schools, all right? Teachers have absolutely there's teachers that are scared to death of some of these students, okay? You've got children that just the other day, okay, cops came in and put handcuffs on a 6-year-old. That's ridiculous. I can't see a 6-year-old being. What's a 6-year-old going to do to an adult? Okay. So I'm just lost at the different ways that we're told as parents how to raise our kids. All right, and the failings of the church. Okay, they're there maybe once a week. And they have these programs and so forth, maybe once or twice a week, and for probably a lot of these children, they don't go to church like they should, like I used to when I was a child. All right, so
Ron, the law has interfered a lot with that, and we have changed the paradigm. We've had a paradigm shift, and we don't see the role of the family as we did many years ago. We see now kids that sit around the table as near equals to their parents. They have rights of their own. Sure, they'll say, well, yeah, you have time out and so on and so forth. But in the old days, parents, you could tell that your parents really meant it.
Mm-hmm.
But kids are not convinced that parents really mean it when they say, behave yourself.
I know. I got one at home who doesn't think I mean business,
But
I'm sure you probably,
Yeah.
got some
Yeah.
grandchildren or something
Yeah.
like that.
But I think you raise a great point that part of this whole problem with the loss of respect and dignity and control within students who are young is due to the breakdown in family. I think
I
that
agree.
that's what you were driving to. And I think that we have to accept responsibility for our own children. And we're not doing that. And sometimes the law hampers that. Like, Ron, you can't touch your kids because the law will come after you. So you have to be cautious on how you deal with them.
Well, I've never concerned myself about that. I had, my son, he was in 11th grade. And I said, hey, look. No, he was in the 10th grade. Okay, and then there's a curfew out. You have to be in by 10 o'clock. Okay? I'll come in when I want to. And if you touch me, I'm going to call the po. He didn't get to pull out before I knocked the shit out of him. All right? Mm-hmm. Okay? And I have never had any problems with that young man ever again. He graduated from college, went into the military. All right? That's my, I wouldn't say that was corrective. That was just a reflex.
Yeah.
All right? Because if I had said something like that to my parents, I probably got killed or pretty close to it. And I'm sure you folks would have, something similar may have happened. Okay?
Ron, the difficulty here is how do we reach the people out there who continue to let the kids, they will do nothing. After hearing all of this, They said, well, it's not my fault, I can't control the kids. And if I do something, the police will come after me, or I'll get turned into FIA or something like that.
May I
Sure.
comment on that?
Absolutely.
Number one, the family structure has changed, and there has been a breakdown in family structure. I think on both sides, parental and also with children, I think that people should realize that there's consequences for actions and also inaction. When the police are called, I believe sincerely that they must have a reason for coming. When the children call, that there, in many cases, an investigation is done, and then people, once if there's some type of agency that comes out, they can ascertain whether or not this is an abused child, whether or not there has been a history, whether or not children are in school. They will ask the teachers, well, what's going on in school? Oftentimes, sometimes, and I have noticed more children than ever are on medication. They are on, I can't believe the number of children that are on medication.
But is that
and
just-
that medication is sent to school with them.
Do you think that's just that the teachers maybe don't want to deal with the issue, their behavior, or the parents don't want to deal with their behaviors? So so they go to a physician, and the physician prescribes them,
Well, I don't-
these Be Cool medications, and then they label them attention deficit disorders and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that they would have to be evaluated by maybe a team of people before that certification is given. I don't know exactly what that process is, but I would think that they would have to be evaluated. But I think also with teachers, I see sometimes, recently there was an article in the paper or a news report that some child was disciplined at school, and the sister texted the mother, and the mother went up, and there was an altercation. I think that teachers are apprehensive about doing what may be necessary in all cases, that they don't get the full support of parents or the administration when they see what is necessary to do. But I feel that in situations that children sometimes are acting out. They want to get a point across, and they feel sometimes they are not heard. Smaller children, older children, and there is always that they want to have control of their lives.
Sure.
And it just does not work that way, because someone has got to pay for the consequences of their actions, but also parents too.
Great point.
What's your thoughts with the 2 minutes we got left, Henry, on this subject matter?
Well, I really liked Lee's analysis, and I liked yours. Lee had said that there were several things that needed to be done, and I hope that parents will look at this. And you have said the bulk of our problem, at least in our communities as we see them today, rests with our families. We are responsible for the outcomes here, not the man,
That's right.
not the system.
Right.
Not the
Right.
church,
Right.
or not foreigners, or aliens.
Right.
It is our responsibility to make sure that we rein our kids in, to give them the kind of leadership,
Yes.
family leadership that they need.
That's correct.
Well, I just hope, in an ideal world, Henry, with the 2 minutes we got left, what would you propose to correct this?
Well, I'm going to share this with, I'm sure that we're all thinking on the same page now. But I would like to see a collection of well-intended people who are educated enough to understand the problem sit down and come up with a model and present that model, develop the model, and decide how we want our kids to behave in 5 years, and then work toward that solution with milestones where we check to see if we are on the corrective path, and then be able to measure what impact we had on the kids' behavior in 5 years. Those are the kind of things that are effective. That's what people do all the time. And yet we have this problem here, and we're living with it, and we're not trying to do anything about it. I think that we do need to have a collection of individuals that come together who are familiar with it, like Leah's and like yourself and others, and talk about it, and talk only about how it impacts the child. Leave the personalities out of it and focus only on the issue that we would like to see solved in 5 years.
With that, we must bring this very important conversation to a close. But first, I want to thank our viewers as well as our technical staff. I want to thank Mr. Lee Black and Mr. Henry Hatter. Until next time, this is Ronald Bayer Robinson and friends saying, stay focused.